My estranged dad sends me exactly $1,000 every month. I don't know why. The notification pings on my phone at exactly 10:47 a.m., just like it has for the past 5 years. Another $1,000 deposit from David R. Chen, my father, though calling him that feels like giving him credit he hasn't earned. I'm sitting in my cramped studio apartment, laptop balanced on my knees, trying to make my freelance graphic design income stretch until next week. The heating bill sits unopened on my coffee table next to a past due notice from my dentist. 24 years old with a communications degree that's apparently worth less than the paper it's printed on, and the only reliable thing in my life is money from the man who walked out when I was 12. Mom always told me to just take it. Sarah, honey, he owes you more than he could ever pay, she'd say whenever I brought up the weirdness of it all. And she's right, he does owe me. He owes me for every birthday he missed, every graduation he skipped, every night I waited by the window thinking maybe this time he'd come back. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night, the payment started exactly when I turned 18. Not when he left. Not when Mom was working 3 jobs just to keep our lights on. Right when I became an adult. There was no note, no explanation, no phone call. Just a direct deposit that showed up like clockwork every single month. I've never spent it frivolously. Can't afford to. It goes straight to necessities, rent, groceries, textbooks when I was still in school. The irony isn't lost on me that the father who couldn't be bothered to pay child support is now single-handedly keeping me from living in my car. My phone buzzes again. This time it's my best friend Maya. Coffee later? My treat smiling face with smiling eyes. I almost laugh. Maya doesn't know about the payments. Nobody does, except Mom. There's something deeply humiliating about accepting money from someone who made it crystal clear you weren't worth sticking around for. It feels like charity from a stranger, except worse, because a stranger wouldn't come with 12 years of abandonment issues attached. I pull up my banking app and stare at the deposit. David R. Chen. I used to have a different last name for him in my head, most of them unprintable. We used to share Saturday morning pancakes and terrible dad jokes. He taught me to ride a bike in the parking lot behind our old apartment building. Then one day he decided his new life was more appealing than his old one, and that was it. The really messed up part? I've become dependent on this. Not just financially, though God knows I need it. But emotionally too. Every month I tell myself this will be the one where the payment doesn't come. Where he finally forgets about me completely. And every month when it arrives, I feel the sick combination of relief and resentment. What kind of father sends money but never sends words? What kind of man thinks $1,000 can substitute for showing up? And why exactly $1,000? Why not $500? Why not $1,200? There's something so calculated about that number, so clean and round. I close the banking app and try to focus on the logo design I'm supposed to finish today. But David R. Chen's name is burned into my mind now, like it is every month when that notification arrives. I'm starting to think it's time I figured out what his real game is. The logo I'm working on looks like garbage, but I can't concentrate. That name, David R. Chen, keeps flashing in my mind like a neon sign. I've been staring at it for 5 years without really seeing it, you know? Just accepting it as this bizarre fact of my life. But now I'm actually thinking about it. David R. Chen. Not David Chen, which is what I remember from old mail when I was a kid. The R is new, or at least I think it is. Middle initial he never used before, like he's trying to sound more official or something. I minimize my design software and do something I've never done before, I Google him. The first few results are useless. Some David Chens who are definitely not him, a few business listings that might be but probably aren't. Then I tried David R. Chen with quotes, and my stomach drops. Third result down, David R. Chen, Senior Financial Advisor, Whitmore and Associates Wealth Management. There's a photo. It's definitely him, though he's gotten older, softer around the edges. Graying hair that he styled in a way that probably costs more than my monthly grocery budget. He's wearing a suit that looks expensive and smiling that same lopsided smile I remember from when he picked me up from school. The bio says he specializes in comprehensive financial planning for high net worth families and has over 15 years of experience in wealth preservation strategies. Wealth preservation. The man who left his family struggling to preserve wealth for other people. But here's the kicker, at the bottom it mentions he lives in Westchester County. That's 2 hours north of here, in the land of gated communities and country clubs. The website shows the office address, 847 Maple Ridge Drive, Harrison, New York. I screenshot everything before I lose my nerve. My hands are shaking as I scroll through more results. There's a mention in a local country club newsletter from last year about their annual charity golf tournament. David R. Chen is listed as one of the sponsors, donating $5,000 to some children's hospital. $5,000. To charity. For kids he doesn't even know. I've been getting $1,000 a month for 60 months. That's $60,000 total. This man has sent me the equivalent of 12 charity donations, spread out over 5 years, like I'm some kind of monthly subscription to fatherhood. The really sick part? I find myself doing math. $1,000 a month is $12,000 a year. If he's making senior financial advisor money in Westchester County, that's probably pocket change to him. A rounding error. The equivalent of me buying a coffee. I dig deeper and find a cached page from some wealth management conference where he was a speaker last year. The topic, tax-efficient strategies for supporting adult children. The irony is so thick I could choke on it. My phone rings and I nearly jump out of my skin. It's Mom. Hi honey, just checking in. How are you doing? Mom, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. Do you know what Dad does for work now? There's a pause. Sarah, why are you asking about him? I looked him up online. He's some kind of financial advisor now. Lives in Westchester. Another pause, longer this time. Sarah, maybe you shouldn't dash. Did you know he was doing well? Like, really well? I suspected, she says quietly. But honey, it doesn't matter. That money he sent you, just think of it as dash. As what? As him paying me to stay away? I hang up before she can answer, because I think I'm starting to figure out exactly what this is. I can't stop myself. For the next 3 hours, I fall down the deepest rabbit hole of my life, and what I find makes me want to throw my laptop across the room. David R. Chin isn't just doing well, he's doing very well. I find a real estate listing from 2 years ago showing he sold a house in Harrison for $2.3 million. Not bought, sold. Which means he probably upgraded to something even more expensive. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is buried in a cached version of some wealth management firm's newsletter from 18 months ago. There's a little spotlight feature on their top advisors, and there he is. David R. Chin recently celebrated his 5-year wedding anniversary with his wife Patricia. The couple enjoys traveling and spending time with David's daughter from his previous marriage. His daughter from his previous marriage. I read it 4 times before it really sinks in. He's been telling people about me. Not just people, his wife. This Patricia woman thinks he has a relationship with his daughter. She probably thinks he's some devoted dad who stayed involved after his divorce. My hands are trembling as I keep digging. Patricia Chen, maiden name Whitmore, as in Whitmore and Associates where David works. Of course. He married the boss's daughter, or niece, or whatever. I find their wedding announcement in the Harrison Herald from 2018. The photo shows David in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car, standing next to a blonde woman in an elaborate dress. The announcement mentions that the groom's daughter Sarah was unable to attend due to college commitments. College commitments. Like I was invited but just couldn't make it instead of having no idea the wedding was even happening. I screenshot everything, my heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. Then I find something that makes me actually nauseous. It's a Facebook post from Patricia's account. Her privacy settings are a joke. From last Christmas, so grateful for family, especially watching David FaceTime with Sarah to make sure she's doing okay with finals. The sweetest dad, red heart. December 15th, 2023. I remember that day perfectly because it was the day I had my wisdom teeth pulled and spent it alone in this apartment, high on painkillers and eating ice cream for dinner. No one FaceTimed me. No one checked on me. But his wife thinks he did. I keep scrolling through Patricia's posts like I'm torturing myself. There are dozens of them. Comments about David's daughter and how proud he is of her graphic design work and how she's doing so well on her own in the city. She thinks she knows me. This woman has built an entire fictional relationship between me and my father in her head, and he's been feeding into it for years. Then I find the post that breaks something inside me. It's from my actual graduation day 2 years ago. David wishes he could be there for Sarah's graduation but respects that she wanted it to be just her and her mom. Such a mature young woman. He's taking her to dinner next week to celebrate graduation cap. There was no dinner. There was never going to be a dinner. But Patricia Chen thinks there was. I slam my laptop shut and pace around my tiny apartment, trying to process what I've just learned. It's not just that he's been sending me money while living his perfect life. It's that he's been using me as a prop in that life. A fictional daughter who exists just enough to make him look good to his wife and colleagues, but not enough to actually require any real effort or emotional investment. The $1,000 monthly payments suddenly make perfect sense. They're not guilt money or support payments. They're receipts. Evidence he can point to if anyone ever questions what kind of father he is. Look, I send Sarah money every month. We FaceTime all the time. She's doing great. All lies. But lies with a paper trail that makes them look real. I spend the rest of the day spiraling, but by evening something shifts. The hurt is crystallizing into something sharper, more focused. I reopen my laptop and start taking real notes this time, documenting everything I found with timestamps and screenshots. That's when I notice something I missed before. In one of Patricia's Facebook posts from tax season last year, she mentions being so proud of David for supporting Sarah through her master's program. I never went to graduate school. I've been working freelance jobs and barely scraping by since I graduated with my bachelor's degree. But apparently David's been claiming I'm in a master's program. The pieces are clicking together in a way that makes my chest tight with rage. I pull up the IRS website and start reading about tax deductions for supporting dependents. My stomach drops as I realize what I'm looking at. Educational expenses. Qualified education expenses for dependents can be written off, even for adult children, under certain circumstances. And monthly support payments to a dependent child? Those can potentially be claimed too, especially if he can demonstrate I'm still in school and he's providing more than half my support. I grab my phone and call Maya. For the first time in 5 years, I need to tell someone about this. Sarah? You sound weird. What's wrong? Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to not judge me. My dad, the one who left when I was 12, he's been sending me money every month since I turned 18. Wait, what? Your dad who you said was a deadbeat? That's just it. He's not a deadbeat. He's rich. Really rich. And I take a breath. I think he's been using me for tax fraud. I explain everything, the payments, the Facebook posts, the fake relationship he's constructed. Maya listens without interrupting, which is how I know she gets how serious this is. Sarah, this is insane. He's literally been paying you to exist so he can pretend to be father of the year? It's worse than that. I think he's been claiming me as a dependent on his taxes. The IRS lets you claim adult children if you're supporting them through college, and his wife thinks I'm in graduate school. Maya, what if every dollar he sent me, he's written off? What if he's actually made money by sending me money? Maya pauses. That's really illegal, isn't it? I think so. And his wife has no idea. She thinks he's this amazing father who supports his daughter and talks to her all the time. She probably thinks I'm some ungrateful brat who doesn't visit enough. What are you going to do? That's the question, isn't it? I could confront him directly, but then what? He'd probably just stop sending the money and disappear again. I could report him to the IRS, but that feels abstract, like he'd just pay some penalty and move on. But as I'm talking to Maya, a different idea starts forming. A worse idea. A much, much worse idea. Maya, what if I showed up at his house? Sarah, no. Not to cause a scene. Just to introduce myself to Patricia. To tell her how grateful I am for having such a supportive father. How nice it's been having all those FaceTime calls he told her about. Sarah, that's psychotic? Yeah. But he's been lying to her for years. She deserves to know who she married, don't you think? The silence on Maya's end tells me she thinks I'm losing it. Maybe I am. But for the first time in 12 years, I feel like I might have actual power over David R. Chin. And I'm starting to think it's time he found out what that feels like. Maya talks me down from showing up at his house, temporarily, at least, but she can't talk me out of digging deeper. The next morning, I'm back on my laptop with a cup of coffee that's gone cold 3 times while I've been scrolling through public records. Turns out, when you know someone's full name, approximate age, and current city, you can find out a disturbing amount of information. David R. Chin and Patricia Whitmore Chin own a house at 1247 Thornfield Lane that they bought for $2.8 million in 2019. The property taxes alone are $47,000 a year, almost 4 times what he sends me annually. But I hit real gold when I find Patricia's LinkedIn profile. She's not just connected to Whitmore and Associates, she's the managing director of client relations. And in her About section, she mentions her passion for supporting families through comprehensive financial planning and how her husband David exemplifies the importance of intergenerational wealth transfer through his dedication to his daughter's educational journey. Educational journey. I screenshot that phrase and add it to what I'm now calling my evidence folder. Then I do something that probably crosses a line. I create a fake LinkedIn account. Nothing elaborate, just generic enough to not raise suspicions. Sarah Mitchell, marketing coordinator in Manhattan. Stock photo profile picture of a brunette who looks vaguely professional. I sent Patricia a connection request with a message. Hi Patricia. I'm working on an article about successful financial advisors who balance career and family. Your husband David came highly recommended as someone who's maintained a strong relationship with his adult daughter while building his practice. Would you be open to a brief conversation about how he manages that balance? She accepts the connection within 2 hours and responds, Hi Sarah. How wonderful. David would be thrilled to know his parenting approach is being recognized. He's always said that staying connected with his daughter Sarah, same name as you, has been his greatest accomplishment. I'd be happy to chat. Are you free for a phone call this week? My hands are shaking as I read her response. She's so genuinely proud of him. So completely convinced that he's this amazing father. There's something almost innocent about how enthusiastically she's willing to brag about their wonderful family dynamic. I agree to a call for Friday afternoon, then immediately start panicking about what I've just set in motion. But the universe apparently isn't done messing with me, because that's when I get a text from an unknown number. Sarah, this is David. We need to talk. Can you call me? I stare at my phone like it's grown teeth. He's never contacted me directly. Not once in 5 years of monthly payments. The only communication has been those sterile bank transfers. Now, less than 24 hours after I've been cyberstalking his wife, he wants to talk? My paranoia kicks in immediately. Does he monitor his wife's social media activity? Did she mention getting a message about him? Or is this timing purely coincidental? I don't call him back. Instead, I screenshot the text and spend the next 3 hours driving myself crazy trying to figure out what prompted it. I even call Maya during her lunch break. This is either the worst timing ever or he somehow knows what you're doing, she says. Either way, don't call him back yet. You need to be prepared for that conversation. She's right. If I'm going to talk to David R. Chin for the first time in 12 years, I want to control the circumstances. I want to know exactly what I'm walking into. But as evening approaches and my phone stays silent, no follow-up texts, no calls, I start wondering if maybe I should be the one who's worried about what he might be preparing for. The $1,000 deposit that's kept me afloat all these years suddenly feels less like a lifeline and more like a leash. And I think David might be getting ready to yank it. I don't call David back, but I can't stop staring at that text. The words, we need to talk, feel loaded with threat, and I keep wondering what triggered it. Did Patricia mention something? Has he been monitoring who connects with her on social media? By Thursday morning, my paranoia reaches a breaking point. I'm supposed to talk to Patricia tomorrow, but David's silence after that one text feels more ominous than if he'd kept messaging. So I do something that probably makes me certifiably insane. I decide to drive up to Westchester and do reconnaissance. I tell myself I'm just going to look. See the house, maybe get a sense of their neighborhood, figure out what kind of life he's built with my monthly payments helping to subsidize his tax situation. It's a terrible idea, but Maya's at work and can't talk me out of it, and I've already called out of my freelance commitments for the day. The drive to 1247 Thornfield Lane takes me through progressively wealthier neighborhoods until I'm crawling past houses that look like small estates. When I finally find his street, I park 2 blocks away and walk, feeling like a complete stalker but unable to stop myself. His house is exactly what I expected and somehow worse. It's a colonial-style mansion with a circular driveway, perfectly manicured landscaping, and a 3-car garage. There's a BMW in the driveway next to a white Tesla. The property taxes on this place are more than most people make in a year. I'm standing behind a conveniently placed oak tree, taking photos with my phone, when the front door opens. My heart stops. It's him. David R. Chin in the flesh, older and grayer than his professional headshots, wearing khakis and a polo shirt that probably costs more than my rent. He's walking toward the mailbox, moving with the casual confidence of someone who's never worried about money. I should leave. I should run back to my car and pretend this never happened. Instead, I freeze behind this tree like an idiot, watching my father check his mail in front of his mansion. That's when I see her. Patricia emerges from the house, blonde hair in a perfect ponytail, wearing workout clothes that somehow look designer. She says something to David that makes him laugh, and the sound hits me like a physical blow. I haven't heard his laugh in 12 years. Don't forget you're picking up the flowers for Sarah's care package, Patricia calls out. I found the most perfect congratulations card for her new freelance contract. I'm too far away to hear David's response, but he nods and waves as Patricia gets into the Tesla. She backs out of the driveway and drives past me, close enough that I can see her smiling face through the windshield. Care package. For a freelance contract that doesn't exist, to celebrate success I haven't had, from a stepmother who thinks she knows me. I'm still processing this when David starts walking back toward the house. Something makes him pause and look around, scanning the street with the expression of someone who senses they're being watched. His gaze passes right over the tree I'm hiding behind, but doesn't stop. My phone buzzes with a text. Without thinking, I glance at it. It's from David. Sarah, I saw your LinkedIn activity. Call me today or the payments stop. We need to discuss boundaries. My blood turns to ice. LinkedIn activity. He knows about my fake account. He knows I've been researching Patricia. And now he's threatening to cut off the money that's keeping me housed and fed. I look up from my phone to find David staring directly at me across his perfect lawn. Even from 50 feet away, I can see the recognition in his eyes. We look at each other for what feels like an eternity but is probably only seconds. Then he raises his phone to his ear and starts walking toward me. I run. I make it back to my car and drive 3 blocks before I have to pull over because my hands are shaking too badly to steer. My phone is buzzing nonstop with calls from David's number, but I can't bring myself to answer. This is a disaster. He saw me. He knows I've been digging into his life, knows I created a fake account to contact Patricia. And now he's threatening to cut off the payments that, despite everything, I still desperately need. I sit in my car outside a Starbucks in some wealthy Westchester suburb, trying to figure out how everything went sideways so fast. 20 minutes ago, I was just gathering information. Now I'm apparently in some kind of standoff with a man who has all the power and knows exactly how to use it. My phone stops buzzing, then immediately starts again. This time it's a text. I'm in the parking lot behind you. Get in my car. Now. I look in my rearview mirror and there's the BMW from his driveway, idling 2 spaces back. David is behind the wheel, wearing sunglasses, looking like he's conducting some kind of business transaction instead of confronting the daughter he abandoned. I have 2 choices, run again, or face this. Running means he definitely cuts off the money and I probably never get answers about what he's been doing. Facing it means. I honestly don't know what it means. Against every instinct screaming at me to drive away, I get out of my car and walk to his BMW. The passenger door is already unlocked. Sarah. He doesn't look at me when I slide into the leather seat. Up close, he looks older than I expected. There are lines around his eyes that weren't there when I was 12, and his hands on the steering wheel look different somehow. More expensive watch, manicured nails, but also more tired than I remember. David. I figure if he's going to treat this like a business meeting, I can too. This needs to stop. His voice is calm, controlled. The voice of someone used to managing situations. Whatever you think you're doing with Patricia, with a LinkedIn account, with showing up at my house, it stops today. Or what? You'll stop sending money you can write off on your taxes anyway? He turns to look at me then, and I see something flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. So you figured that part out. I figured out a lot of things. Like how Patricia thinks we FaceTime regularly. How she's planning to send me a care package for a job I don't have. How you told people I was in graduate school. David is quiet for a long moment, staring out the windshield at the Starbucks. It started small, he says finally. When Patricia and I first met, she asked about children. I mentioned I had a daughter. She assumed we had a relationship. So you lied. I didn't correct her assumption. And then it became easier to maintain that fiction than to explain why I hadn't spoken to you in years. Easier for you, maybe. But Patricia genuinely cares about someone who doesn't exist. And I've been unknowingly participating in tax fraud for 5 years. He looks at me sharply. The payments are legitimate support. You're my dependent. I'm 24 years old with a job. I'm nobody's dependent. You're my dependent as long as I'm providing more than half your support and you're pursuing education. I'm not in school, David. I graduated 2 years ago. There's another long silence. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter. Patricia doesn't know that. The admission hangs between us like a confession. He's been claiming educational expenses for a daughter who isn't in school, telling his wife stories about a relationship that doesn't exist, and sending me just enough money to keep me quiet and financially dependent while he builds his perfect life. Here's what's going to happen, I say, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. I'm going to talk to Patricia tomorrow. I'm going to tell her the truth about our relationship. Sarah, you don't understand what you'd be destroying. Your marriage? Your reputation? Your tax situation? Patricia's peace of mind. She loves the idea of having a stepdaughter. She buys you birthday presents every year that I donate to charity because I don't know where to send them. That hits harder than I expected. This woman has been buying me birthday presents for years, and I never knew I existed in her world. But I push down the guilt. She deserves to know who she married. David starts the engine. If you contact Patricia again, the payments stop immediately. And Sarah? I'll make sure everyone knows exactly why. The threat is clear. He'll tell people I was extorting him, manipulating him, lying about being in school. He'll make me the villain in this story. As I get out of his car, I realize I've learned something important. David R. Chin is scared of me. And maybe it's time I figured out how to use that. I don't call Patricia on Friday. Instead, I spend the morning researching tax law and the afternoon having what might be the most important conversation of my life with someone I never expected to talk to. It starts when I'm Googling claiming false dependents IRS penalties and find a phone number for their fraud reporting hotline. I dial it on impulse, not really planning to report anything yet, just wanting to understand what David might be facing if this all comes to light. The woman who answers is surprisingly helpful. I give her a hypothetical scenario, someone claiming an adult child as a dependent for educational expenses when that child isn't in school, hasn't been for years, and the parent has been lying about providing support for education. Well, she says, if we're talking hypothetically, that would be filing false claims for education credits, potentially fraudulent dependent exemptions, and if the amounts are significant over multiple years, we could be looking at felony tax evasion charges. Felony charges. I write that down. The penalties can be severe, back taxes, interest, fines up to $250,000, and potentially prison time. Plus, if there's a pattern of deliberate deception, the IRS tends to audit the previous 6 years of returns, not just the fraudulent ones. 6 years would cover our entire arrangement, plus the year before it started. I thank her and hang up, staring at my notes. David isn't just risking his marriage or his reputation. He's risking everything. That's when my phone rings. Unknown number, but I answer anyway. Is this Sarah Chen? It's Sarah Mitchell, but yeah. Who is this? This is Patricia Chin, David's wife. Her voice is warm, excited. I hope you don't mind me calling directly. I got your number from David's phone. I just couldn't wait until our scheduled call to reach out. My stomach drops. David gave her my number? Or did she find it in his contacts and not realize why he had it? I wanted to thank you, she continues, for wanting to write about David's relationship with his daughter. Sarah, she's been having such a hard time lately with her graduate program, and I know it would mean the world to her to see her father recognized for being so supportive. Graduate program. She's still convinced I'm in school. What kind of hard time? I ask, because I apparently hate myself. Oh, you know how it is. The stress of thesis work, the financial pressure. David's been sending extra money to help with her research expenses, and we've been trying to coordinate more regular check-ins, but she's so independent. Sometimes I worry we're not doing enough. Extra money. Research expenses. I feel sick. Patricia, can I ask you something? When was the last time you actually spoke to Sarah yourself? There's a pause. Well, David usually handles their calls directly. Father-daughter time, you know? But I send care packages, and she always has David thank me. Such a sweet girl. Very focused on her studies. The care packages I've never received. The thanks I've never given. The studies that ended 2 years ago. What's her graduate program in? I ask, even though I know I should hang up right now. Art therapy. She's doing her thesis on using graphic design techniques in therapeutic settings. David is so proud, he says she's going to change how people think about creative healing. Art therapy. It's actually not a terrible fit for my interests, which somehow makes this worse. David has created a fictional version of me that's not completely unrealistic, just successful and still in school and grateful for his support. Patricia, I say carefully, what would you do if you found out David had been lying to you about Sarah? Another pause, longer this time. That's an odd question. Why would he lie about his daughter? I mean, hypothetically. What if their relationship wasn't what you thought it was? I don't understand. Are you saying David isn't close with Sarah? Because I see the bank transfers every month. I see how he lights up when they talk. I've watched him agonize over whether he's sending enough money, whether she needs more support. Bank transfers she can see. Calls she thinks she's witnessed. A man who appears to agonize over supporting his daughter. Except the daughter has no idea he's agonizing, because the daughter never talks to him. I have to go, I tell Patricia, and hang up before she can respond. I sit in my apartment staring at my phone, trying to process what I just learned. Patricia isn't just an innocent victim of David's lies, she's a co-conspirator, even if she doesn't know it. She's been watching him commit tax fraud, thinking it was generosity. But more than that, she's been living in a fantasy where she has a stepdaughter who appreciates her, where her husband is a devoted father, where their family is more complete than it actually is. My phone buzzes with a text from David. Patricia said you called her directly. This is your final warning. I text back, we need to meet again. Tomorrow. And this time, you're going to tell me exactly how much money you've stolen from the IRS using my name. His response comes immediately. Stolen is a strong word. So is fraud. I meet David the next day at a diner in White Plains, neutral territory, he calls it. He's already there when I arrive, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall like he's expecting trouble. He's traded the casual polo shirt for a business suit, probably coming from we're going to the office. Trying to maintain the illusion that this is just another meeting he needs to manage. I slide into the booth across from him and pull out a folder I prepared. Screenshots, printed bank records, copies of his tax documents I managed to find through public records searches. Not everything, but enough to show I'm serious. You said stolen was a strong word, I start without preamble. So let's talk numbers. 5 years of payments, $60,000 total. How much of that did you write off? David glances around the diner, then back at my folder. Sarah, you need to understand the complexity of. How much, David? He's quiet for a long moment, stirring sugar into coffee he probably doesn't want. The education credits were approximately $2,500 per year. The dependent exemptions varied based on tax law changes, but roughly $4,000 annually. So maybe $32,500 total in deductions. I write this down, my hand surprisingly steady. So you saved what, about $8,000 in actual taxes? Maybe 10? The exact amount depends on tax brackets and. You made money sending me money. The reality of it hits me fresh, even though I'd already figured this out. You've been profiting off of pretending to be my father. I am your father, Sarah. Biologically, legally. Sperm donor, I correct. Fathers show up. David flinches, which gives me more satisfaction than it should. But then his expression hardens, and I see a glimpse of something that reminds me why I was afraid of this conversation. Fine. You want to play hardball? Here's the reality, you've been knowingly accepting money you weren't entitled to. You never told me you graduated. You never said you weren't in school. As far as the IRS is concerned, you're just as complicit in this as I am. The accusation hits like ice water. I never claimed to be in school. I never filed anything saying you were supporting my education. No, but you cashed the checks. You knew I was claiming you as a dependent, why else would the payments have started when you turned 18? You're not stupid, Sarah. You knew this was a tax arrangement. I did know, on some level. I'd wondered about the timing, the amount, the consistency. But I'd wanted the money too much to ask questions that might make it stop. That doesn't make it legal, I say, but my voice sounds less certain than before. No, it doesn't. But it makes you an accessory. If you report me to the IRS, you'll have to explain why you never corrected the arrangement. They'll want to know why you didn't report the payments as income, why you never questioned the educational premise. He's right, and we both know it. I've been taking money under false pretenses for 5 years. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but the result is the same. However, David continues, pulling out his own phone, I'm prepared to offer you a solution. A lump sum payment of $100,000. No more monthly deposits, no more tax complications. You disappear from my life permanently, and we both pretend this arrangement never happened. $100,000. More than I've ever had at once. Enough to pay off my debts, maybe go back to school legitimately, start over somewhere new. And Patricia? I ask. Patricia continues believing what she believes. Everyone stays happy. I look at my father across the table, this stranger in an expensive suit offering me money to disappear, just like he did 12 years ago. Except this time, he's putting a specific price tag on my absence. I need time to think about it. You have until Monday. After that, all offers are off the table. As I walk back to my car, I realize David just made a critical mistake. He showed me exactly how desperate he is to keep this quiet. Which means I have more power than either of us thought. I spend the entire weekend staring at David's offer, but by Sunday night I know I can't take it. Not because $100,000 isn't life-changing money, but because I finally understand what's really happening here. This isn't about taxes or fraud or even the money. This is about David building a perfect life on a foundation of lies, and me being the only person who can expose how hollow it all is. Monday morning, instead of calling David, I do something that probably makes me a terrible person. I call Patricia. Sarah. How wonderful to hear from you again. I was just telling David how much I enjoyed our conversation on Friday. Patricia, I need to tell you something important. Can we meet in person? Today? Oh. There's surprise in her voice. Well, I suppose I could drive into the city. Is everything all right? You sound upset. I'm fine. I just think we should talk face to face. There are some things about David's relationship with his daughter that I think you should know. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in Midtown at 2 p.m. I spend the morning rehearsing what I'm going to say, how I'm going to explain without completely destroying this woman who's been nothing but kind to a person she's never met. Patricia arrives exactly on time, and she's smaller than she looked in photos. Mid-40s, blonde hair and a neat bob, wearing a cream-colored sweater that probably costs more than my monthly grocery budget. She hugs me like we're old friends, which makes what I'm about to do so much worse. I ordered you a latte, she says as we sit down. David mentioned once that Sarah loves caramel lattes, so I thought you might too. Sarah loves caramel lattes. It's true, I do. David remembered that from when I was 12 years old, and somehow that detail made it into his fictional narrative about our relationship. Patricia, I need to start with something that's going to sound crazy. My name isn't Sarah Mitchell. It's Sarah Chen. I'm David's daughter. She laughs, thinking I'm making a joke. Oh, don't be silly. You're the journalist who's writing about. She stops mid-sentence as she really looks at my face. You're serious. I'm Sarah. The Sarah you've been hearing about for 5 years. The one you buy birthday presents for. The one who's supposedly in graduate school. Patricia goes very still. That's impossible. Sarah is in Boston. She's working on her thesis. David just sent her money last week for research materials. David and I haven't spoken in 12 years until last weekend. I graduated from college 2 years ago with a bachelor's degree. I've never been to Boston. I live in a studio apartment in Queens and work freelance graphic design jobs. No. Patricia shakes her head. David shows me the bank transfers. He talks to Sarah every few weeks. Just last month he was worried about her stress levels during thesis work. I pull out my phone and show her my banking app, scrolling to the monthly deposits from David R. Chen. These are the transfers you've been seeing. But look at the dates, Patricia. Look at the amounts. It's exactly $1,000 every month, for 5 years. No variation for research materials or extra stress support. Patricia stares at my phone screen, and I watch something crumble in her expression. The graduate program in art therapy? I made that up when you described it to me on Friday. The thesis work? The Boston apartment? The regular phone calls? None of it exists. But he lights up when he talks to her. I've seen him. When was the last time you actually watched him make one of those calls? When was the last time you heard my voice on the other end? Patricia's coffee sits untouched as she processes this. He always takes the calls in his office. Privacy, he said. Father-daughter time. He's been lying to you for 5 years, Patricia. And using those lies to commit tax fraud by claiming educational expenses for a daughter who isn't in school. The silence stretches between us until Patricia finally speaks, her voice barely above a whisper. How much does he send you? $12,000 a year. He told me it was closer to 30. For tuition and living expenses and books. She looks up at me with eyes that are starting to fill with tears. What else has he been lying about? That's when my phone buzzes with a text from David. Patricia isn't answering her phone. What did you do? I show Patricia the text from David, and watch her face cycle through confusion, hurt, and something that might be anger. He's checking up on me, she says quietly. Making sure I don't find out what kind of man I married. Patricia, I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. She wipes her eyes with a napkin, but her voice is steadier when she speaks again. No, I needed to hear it. God, Sarah, the things I've said to people. At the country club, at work events. I've been bragging about David's relationship with you for years. I've told everyone what a devoted father he is. The weight of that hits me. Patricia hasn't just been living David's lie, she's been spreading it, unknowingly making him look good to their entire social circle. There's more, I say, because if I'm destroying her world, I might as well be thorough. The tax implications of what he's been doing? If the IRS finds out, he could face felony charges. We're talking about 6 figures in penalties, possible prison time. Patricia stares at me. Prison? He's been claiming educational tax credits for someone who isn't in school, writing off support payments as educational expenses. Over 5 years, it adds up to serious federal tax fraud. My phone buzzes again. This time it's a call from David. Patricia and I both stare at the screen as it rings. Answer it, she says. I want to hear how he explains this. I accept the call and put it on speaker. Hello, David. Sarah, where's my wife? She's right here. We're having coffee. The silence on David's end is deafening. When he speaks again, his voice is tight with barely controlled panic. Put Patricia on the phone. Now. Patricia leans toward my phone. I'm here, David. And I know everything. Patricia, whatever she's told you. Is it true? Have you been lying to me about Sarah for 5 years? Another silence. Then, it's complicated. It's a yes or no question, David. Have you been lying to me about having a relationship with your daughter? We can discuss this at home. Have you been committing tax fraud using her name? Patricia, you don't understand the nuances of. Have you been telling people at the office, at the club, that you talk to Sarah regularly? That you're supporting her through graduate school? The longest silence yet. When David speaks, his voice sounds defeated. Yes. Patricia closes her eyes. Come home. Now. We need to talk. Patricia. Now, David. She hangs up and sits back in her chair, looking like she's aged 5 years in the past hour. What are you going to do? I ask. I don't know. What are you going to do? It's a fair question. I came here planning to expose David's lies, but I didn't think beyond that. Now I'm sitting across from a woman whose marriage is imploding because of information I gave her, and I'm not sure if I feel vindicated or horrible. I say slowly, I want him to face consequences. Real ones. Not just losing his marriage or his reputation. He needs to pay back what he stole, and he needs to face legal consequences for the fraud. Patricia nods. The IRS? The IRS. But Patricia, you should know, when this comes out, it's going to get ugly. Your finances will be scrutinized. Your reputation will be affected too. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. My reputation? Sarah, I've been unknowingly helping my husband commit felonies while bragging about what a wonderful family man he is. My reputation is already destroyed. She stands up, leaving her untouched latte on the table. Thank you for telling me the truth. And Sarah? When you report him, make sure they know I had no idea. Because I'm going to make sure David understands that this isn't just about money anymore. As she walks away, my phone starts ringing again. David, of course. This time, I let it go to voicemail. I spend Tuesday morning drafting my complaint to the IRS, but I can't bring myself to submit it yet. Every time I hover over the send button, I think about Patricia driving home to confront David, and I wonder what kind of explosion I've set off in their perfect Westchester life. I get my answer at 11:43 a.m. when my phone rings. Unknown number, but when I answer, it's Patricia's voice, strained and exhausted. Sarah? I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask you something. Are you planning to report David to the IRS? Yes. I think I have to. Good. Because I spent last night going through 5 years of our joint tax returns, and it's so much worse than you know. That stops me cold. Worse how? Can we meet? I have David's financial records, and there are things you need to see before you file that report. We meet at the same coffee shop, but Patricia looks like a completely different person. Her hair is pulled back in a messy ponytail, she's wearing jeans and a wrinkled sweater, and there are dark circles under her eyes that suggest she didn't sleep at all. David left this morning, she says without preamble, sliding a manila folder across the table. Packed a bag and went to stay at his brother's house. But not before I made him sit down and explain exactly what he's been doing. I open the folder and immediately feel sick. It's full of tax documents, bank statements, and what looks like a handwritten confession in David's neat script. The $12,000 a year he's been sending you? He's been claiming $18,000 in educational support payments on our taxes. $6,000 a year that he never sent you, but wrote off anyway. He what? I scan through the documents, trying to make sense of the numbers. It gets worse. Those research expenses and educational materials I mentioned? He's been claiming an additional $3,000 to $5,000 per year for things like laptop purchases, software, books, conference fees. All fictional. My hands are shaking as I flip through pages of fabricated expenses. A $2,400 laptop for graphic design coursework. A $1,200 educational conference in Chicago. Software subscriptions for programs I've never heard of. Patricia, this is tens of thousands of dollars in fake deductions. Over 5 years, David estimates he's claimed roughly $47,000 in educational expenses for you. He saved approximately $15,000 in taxes while only actually sending you $60,000. Sarah, he's been making a 25% profit on pretending to support you. The math is staggering. Not only has David been using me for tax fraud, he's been escalating it every year, getting bolder with fictional expenses because no one was checking his work. There's more, Patricia continues, and I notice her hands are shaking too. I pulled our credit card statements. For 5 years, David has been making purchases around your supposed birthday, Christmas, graduation milestones. Expensive items that he told me were gifts for you. What kind of items? Jewelry, electronics, clothing. Last Christmas alone, he spent $3,000 on what he said were presents for Sarah. I thought he was being incredibly generous. Where did the stuff go? Patricia's laugh is bitter. Returns, mostly. Sometimes he'd donate items for additional tax deductions. David has been running a complete fictional relationship with you for tax benefits, social status, and to manipulate me into thinking I married a family man. I'm staring at a receipt for a $1,200 necklace from Tiffany & Company, purchased December 15th and returned December 23rd. The return receipt is paperclipped to the purchase receipt, like David was keeping careful records of his own deception. Patricia, you could have reported this yourself. Why are you showing me? She meets my eyes for the first time since sitting down. Because when I confronted David last night, he said something that made me realize how far he's willing to go to protect himself. What did he say? He said if anyone reports him to the IRS, he'll claim you were complicit. That you knew about the educational expenses and were helping him file false claims. He's going to say the whole arrangement was your idea. My blood runs cold. That's not true. I know it's not true. But Sarah, David is a financial advisor. He knows how to make numbers tell whatever story he wants them to tell. And he's had 5 years to prepare for this possibility. She pulls out her phone and shows me a text David sent her this morning, spoke with attorney. Sarah's acceptance of payments establishes pattern of cooperative fraud. If she reports me, she goes down too. This protects both of us. He's going to throw me under the bus, I whisper. He's going to try. But that's why I'm here. Patricia reaches into her purse and pulls out a small digital recorder. David doesn't know I recorded our conversation last night. 3 hours of him explaining exactly how he set up the fraud, how he escalated it over time, and how he's been lying to both of us for years. She presses play, and David's voice fills the space between us. Started small, just claiming her as a dependent, but then Patricia kept asking about Sarah's expenses, so I had to create receipts that matched what a graduate student might need. Patricia stops the recording. I have everything, Sarah. His confession, the financial records, proof that you had no knowledge of the false educational expenses. When you report him to the IRS, you won't be going down with him. I stare at this woman who was a stranger 48 hours ago and is now handing me the evidence I need to destroy her husband. Why are you helping me? Patricia's smile is sad but determined. Because David stole 5 years of my life by making me fall in love with a man who doesn't exist. The least I can do is make sure he doesn't steal your future too. I leave the coffee shop with Patricia's evidence folder tucked under my arm like it's radioactive. 3 hours of David's recorded confession, 5 years of falsified tax documents, and enough proof to send my father to prison. The weight of it feels heavier than it should. But when I get home, there's a certified letter waiting in my mailbox that makes my stomach drop to my shoes. It's from Kellerman, Associates and Price, attorneys at law. Inside is a cease and desist letter demanding I stop harassing Mr. David R. Chan and his family through fraudulent contact and extortionist behavior. The letter claims I've been impersonating a journalist to gain access to private family information and threatens legal action if I contact David or Patricia again. The letter is dated yesterday. David sent his lawyers after me before he even knew what Patricia was going to do. I'm still processing this when my phone rings. It's a number I don't recognize, but I answer anyway because at this point, what's one more disaster? Sarah Chan? This is Detective Morrison with the White Plains Police Department. We've received a complaint about stalking and harassment. I need you to come in for questioning. The words blur together as he explains that David filed a police report claiming I've been following him, trespassing on his property, and using false identities to contact his wife. Everything I actually did, but framed as criminal behavior instead of someone trying to understand why their father abandoned them. Detective, there's something you need to know about the person who filed this complaint, I start, but he cuts me off. Ma'am, I need you to come to the station. Today. If you don't show up voluntarily, we'll have to issue a warrant. I hang up and immediately call Maya, my hands shaking so badly I can barely dial. Sarah, slow down. What lawyers? What police? I explain about the cease and desist letter, the police complaint, David's preemptive strike to discredit me before I can report him to the IRS. He's trying to make you look like an unhinged stalker, Maya says. If you show up at the police station talking about tax fraud, it's going to sound like you're making up stories to justify harassment. She's right. David has flipped the narrative. Now I'm not the abandoned daughter seeking answers, I'm the unstable young woman harassing a successful businessman and his innocent wife. Maya, I have recordings. Documents. Patricia gave me everything I need to prove David's been committing fraud. Sarah, think about this. You obtained those documents through deception. You created a fake LinkedIn account. You followed him to his house. Legally, you might actually be in the wrong here, even if morally you're justified. That stops me cold. I've been so focused on David's crimes that I didn't consider my own methods might be legally questionable. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. This is Patricia. David doesn't know I'm contacting you. His lawyer is Mark Kellerman, we play tennis together. David told Mark you've been blackmailing him for money and threatening to make up stories about tax fraud if he doesn't pay. Mark thinks you're dangerous. I text back, what about the evidence you gave me? David doesn't know about the recording. But Sarah, he's building a case that you're extorting him. The police complaint, the lawyer, it's all designed to make you look unstable if this goes public. Another text, there's something else. David emptied our joint savings account this morning. $400,000. His brother says he never came to stay there. I think David's planning to run. $400,000. David isn't just trying to discredit me, he's preparing to disappear entirely, leaving me to face criminal charges while he starts over somewhere else. I stare at Patricia's texts, realizing that David has been planning this contingency for years. The monthly payments weren't just about taxes or maintaining appearances. They were bait, creating a paper trail that could be weaponized against me if I ever became a problem. And now I'm about to find out just how effectively he set his trap. I'm sitting in my car outside the White Plains Police Department, trying to work up the courage to walk inside, when my phone rings with yet another unknown number. Sarah? This is James Chen, David's brother. We need to talk immediately. My first instinct is to hang up, David's probably coaching his family to contact me now. But something in James's voice stops me. David told you I was staying with him, didn't he? James continues before I can respond. He's not here, Sarah. He hasn't been here. And based on what Patricia just told me, I think my brother is in serious trouble. Patricia called you? 20 minutes ago. She's frantic. Apparently David cleaned out their accounts and disappeared, but not before telling his lawyer that you've been extorting him. James pauses. Sarah, I need you to know something. David asked me for help with something 2 months ago that didn't make sense at the time. I gripped the phone tighter. What kind of help? He wanted me to create a paper trail showing that he'd been concerned about your mental health for years. Asked me to backdate some emails, create fake text conversations where he was worried about you becoming unstable and making threats. Said it was for insurance purposes. The blood drains from my face. Did you do it? No. But Sarah, the fact that he asked means he's been planning this for months. He knew you might eventually figure out what he was doing, and he's been building a defense that makes you look like the aggressor. I look at the police station through my windshield, understanding now that walking in there might be the worst mistake I could make. David has spent 2 months creating evidence that I'm unstable and dangerous. The real evidence Patricia gave me won't matter if everyone already believes I'm an extortionist making up stories. James, Patricia recorded David confessing to everything. The tax fraud, the fake expenses, all of it. She told me. But Sarah, think about this from the police perspective. You created a fake identity to contact his wife. You followed him to his house. You've been accepting money you knew was part of a questionable arrangement. David's lawyer is going to argue that you're an unstable young woman who's been planning this for months. He's right. Every action I've taken in the past week can be reframed as the behavior of someone building an extortion case against her wealthy father. There's more, James continues. Patricia found something else when she was going through David's files. He's been researching you, Sarah. Social media monitoring, background checks, even credit reports. He's been tracking your financial situation and employment status for years. Why would he need to track me if he thought I was in graduate school? Because he knew you weren't. He's known you graduated 2 years ago. The whole graduate school story was just for Patricia and the tax returns. David has been fully aware that he was committing fraud, and he's been monitoring you to make sure you stayed desperate enough to keep taking the money without asking questions. The pieces click into place with sickening clarity. The $1,000 payments weren't random, they were calculated to keep me housed and fed but struggling enough that I wouldn't risk losing them by investigating too deeply. David has been managing me like a business expense, keeping me financially dependent while building legal defenses in case I ever became a threat. James, where do you think he went? I honestly don't know. But Sarah, Patricia thinks he might have been planning this for longer than 2 months. She found travel websites in his browser history, flights to countries without extradition treaties. If David really took $400,000 in cash, he might already be gone. My phone buzzes with another call, Detective Morrison again. I have to go, I tell James. The police want to question me about stalking charges. Sarah, don't go in there without a lawyer. Please. David has had months to prepare his story. You've had 3 days to figure out what's happening. As I hang up, I realize James is right. I'm about to walk into an interrogation where I'm cast as a villain in a story David has been writing for months. But Patricia's evidence is still sitting in my passenger seat, and somewhere David R. Chen is probably boarding a plane with stolen money, thinking he's outsmarted everyone. The question is, can I prove the truth before his lies destroy my life completely? I don't go to the police station. Instead, I drive straight to the IRS Criminal Investigation Field Office in Manhattan with Patricia's evidence folder and a plan that's either brilliant or completely insane. Special Agent Rebecca Martinez listens to David's recorded confession twice before speaking. Ms. Chen, you understand that your father has already contacted our fraud hotline claiming you've been extorting him with false accusations? My heart sinks. He got to you first. Yesterday morning. But here's the thing about financial criminals, they usually can't help but over-explain their innocence. Agent Martinez pulls out a file. Your father spent 45 minutes on the phone detailing exactly why your claims about educational tax fraud were impossible. He was very specific about dates, amounts, and procedures. She plays a recording, David's voice, confident and condescending, explaining to the IRS investigator how he'd never claimed educational expenses for me because I graduated in 2022, how the $1,000 monthly payments were simple family support, and how I was clearly making up the graduate school story to make him look bad. The problem, Agent Martinez continues, is that his actual tax returns tell a completely different story. We pulled 5 years of filings this morning. Your father claimed $47,000 in educational expenses for a daughter he just told us wasn't in school. I almost laugh at the beautiful irony. David's preemptive call to discredit me actually gave the IRS his confession to crimes he didn't realize he was admitting to. There's more, she says, pulling out another document. We flagged his bank records an hour ago. David R. Chen withdrew $400,000 from joint accounts yesterday and purchased a one-way ticket to Singapore. Flight departed JFK at 11:30 this morning. He ran. He tried to run. TSA flagged him during boarding because we'd already put a hold on his passport. He's currently in federal custody at JFK, probably wondering how his perfectly planned escape fell apart so quickly. Agent Martinez slides a form across her desk. We're going to need your full cooperation for the prosecution, but I want you to know, you're not in legal trouble. Your father's attempts to frame you for extortion actually provided us with detailed evidence of his own crimes. 3 hours later, I'm walking out of the federal building with a business card, a case number, and the strangest feeling of lightness I've had in years. The monthly payments are over forever, but for the first time since I was 12, that feels like freedom instead of abandonment. My phone rings as I'm getting into my car. It's Patricia. Sarah? I just heard from Agent Martinez. They arrested David at the airport? Apparently he confessed to everything while trying to convince them I was lying. Patricia's laugh sounds exhausted but genuine. That's so perfectly David. Always too clever for his own good. She pauses. Sarah, I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. And I want you to know, those birthday presents I bought you over the years? I kept them all. They're yours if you want them. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a federal courthouse watching David R. Chen get sentenced to 37 months in prison and ordered to pay $127,000 in restitution and penalties to the IRS. He looks smaller in his orange jumpsuit, older and defeated. Patricia sits 2 rows behind me, and when our eyes meet, she gives me a small smile. We're not friends exactly, too much history and weirdness for that, but we become something like allies in cleaning up the mess David left behind. The judge asks if I want to make a victim impact statement. I stand up, looking at my father for the first time since that day in the BMW. Your Honor, for 5 years I thought my father was supporting me out of guilt or love. I've learned he was actually profiting off my existence while building a fake relationship for his wife's benefit. The monthly payments kept me financially dependent, but losing them gave me something more valuable, the knowledge that I never have to wonder what David R. Chen wants from me again. As the bailiff leads David away, he doesn't look back. For the first time, that doesn't hurt.